That's Betty. I can just tell by the way she's swinging. So powerful. There, she got it. Feel like clapping. Passing leap. There's Billy. I think he's going to come back to the board. Yeah, he would come back to the board every now and then. So I would do a lot to try and warm up my shoulders quite a bit, and then flexibility was key. So I was always stretching forwards, backwards, left, and right, constantly. But the shoulders, I would do a lot to warm up my shoulders, and that typically was the failure point for many flyers, especially as they got older. Because you're constantly putting so much strain on that part of your body. I mean, if you take a look when you're flying, you're kicking back there, strain on the shoulders. You get caught, there's a strain on the shoulders. And the other thing was your core. Your core would need to be extremely strong for a number of the tricks because you're holding your legs up in that L for as long as you possibly can. Typically, you hold an L, and when you're ready to throw the trick that was called the break, and you would throw your legs behind you as hard as you can, and again, that strain on the shoulders because you want to get as much upward motion as you possibly could. Because if you look at it, when you throw tricks, you're holding that L lever as long as you can, and then you're braking to get as much upward force as you possibly can so that you are flying and doing that trick in the air. And that is one of the most amazing feelings you could have, is just you're flying, you're fighting gravity, I guess is the best way to describe it. And it's just a great feeling. Just a great, great feeling. I got a newfound respect for gravity, just, making sure that don't take anything for granted. I mean, there was a building in Des Moines, Iowa. It was 100 feet to the beam. That was scary. Just because you'd have to pull up the ropes, the pulley blocks, and so you're leaning over a beam and you're pulling up these pulley blocks that, they're probably 25 pounds, but you have to pull them all that way, 100 feet. Your ass is worn out.
Yeah.
And it's dirty.
Were you tied to something, or were you...
No. Literally, we were on, hanging on beams. I mean, OSHA was not around. I mean, you just did it. It was what was expected. You would walk out on beams and drop a rope, pull the item up. I mean, like I said, heavy as it could be, and then you would wrap cable, and then you'd have to take it down. So after you'd performed, you're worn out, you're tired, you got to go back up there and lower them down then. Some pictures from Circus Kirk when I was 15, 16 years old. We have there as well. Gosh, there's just so much. Wow. pictures of me with the elephants. Picture of Billy catching me. Trick. My original tidy member of the Compania, a tidy, and I actually have the original letter for the pay we were going to receive and the length of time that it was going on. Something kind of different. These are some of the route cards from King Brothers Circus. They would tell us what town we were going to, how many miles it was to the next town, and they would total up the number of miles we were doing at any one point in time. Wish I had them all. The last one I have here shows it just somewhere over 6,500 miles that we had traveled over that 9-month period of time. It would be the picture in the program that they were selling, you know, with the advertisements. Typically they had a lot of advertisements in the programs and stuff like that. I have a program from them that has the faces and the people that are involved. So that's Yo-Yo.
Your mom's favorite.
Yep, my mom's favorite cat. This is when I took care of those Yo-Yo cats. When we did the perch act, we would use rosin and roncinol lighter fluid. That would make it real sticky, you know. They probably something football players used to use, but theirs was already chemically made up, if you like. Ours was, like I said, rosin and lighter fluid. It would give you a lot of stick there. On both acts, we would have a sock full of rosin that we would use in between, because depending on where you were and what you were doing, your hands could be sweating a lot. And that was one of the reasons why we had the twill tape around our wrists, so that we could have a good dry grip on each other. When I first time I went up flying, I thought you had to go really quick and fast. And I tried to pull my legs up too quick because I wasn't thinking of the timing, and it just smashed them into here because I just couldn't lift them up. I mean, the forces, the G-forces. Right. You had to really time it right to pick it up, and I smashed into the back of the board. I didn't care because it'd been the first time that I had flying, and it was just an amazing feeling. It just had been relatively new to flying and doing the perch act and the bird act with Billy and Betty. And I met those guys, and for the most part, we hit it off right off the bat. They were just fantastic. Chino did high wire. They had a number of animal acts that they were working, lions, elephants, and the like. And they were just great. It's a great family, and we just hit it off, and we became great friends and remained great friends ever since. They took me in as family. Their mother, Anna, took me in, Jose. They treated me fantastic, and we spent a number of years together and are still friends to this day with the Beretta family. Tigers and lions are unique animals. You know, I've taught all my kids how to say hi to a tiger.
How do you say hi to a tiger?
You do. I know it sounds funny, but they will respond back to you typically. One time.
You just go, what do you do?
Yeah. And they'll do that back to you. So, you ask Reed right now, he'll tell you the same thing. He knows how to say hi to a tiger. Pierce, ask Pierce.
How do you say hi to a lion?
They don't have the same type of thing, you know. Hello, Mr. Lion. You would pull in, and you'd get ready and start to get your rigging all set up, and you would work until it was completely set up. Didn't matter how many hours. You know, I really don't remember a time that you would go in and say, hey, we'll finish it up tomorrow, because a lot of times we were going from day to day to day. So it would be continuous. Now you'd have a break, but at least, 10 hours set up, depending on the type of building that you're setting up. If it was a tent show, it was less than that, because I wasn't involved typically in helping set up the tent. I was just putting my rigging in, and that was going up, so it was a little bit different. But working in the big coliseums and the like, you would spend a lot of time, virtually all day. I'm going to say 8 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, getting set up, because typically you were on a tight schedule. You know, you'd pull in on a Thursday, you have a show on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that type of thing. So you would work until you were ready to go. So there was no strict number of hours that you would have at any one point in time. Now, once you were set up, you may have to practice, you know, in the morning, and then you may have a show at 2 and at 8 o'clock at night that you're working on. So it was a long day. It was a long day. You kind of become you become laser focused on the trick itself. And I had confidence in the tricks that you're doing because you practice them over and over and over again. But there were some that were testing you more than anything else, the limits of what your capabilities were. And to a certain extent, it just made you stronger. And you would force out, which means you would try and make your swing higher. You would pull up kind of to try and get as much height as you possibly could. So that would kind of give you the kind of focus that you would need to complete the trick. And you kind of get tunnel vision when you're doing an especially hard trick. You know, you don't really hear the music, you don't really see the crowd as much. I mean, you see them, they're obviously there, but you're laser focused. You'd see the top of the ceiling. You know, typically indoors there were beams there, and you're like, am I going to hit those beams or not? You know, is that going to happen? And then you'd come back and you'd kick your legs back as hard as you could and snap them back up into that L position. And that would be, it's almost like cocking a gun. You're ready to explode again, because then you're following that up into the air. And as you're coming down, you start feeling that pressure on your legs. And you're holding it, because if you break, snap too soon or too late, your trick is either going to go flying that way or it's going to be too short. So you're holding it, and then you break at the right time and snap it up in the air as hard as you possibly can. And then you're throwing your trick or doing your triples or whatever the case may be. And then, you know, you're flying for a period of time and you see your catcher there. And it's like, okay, have they got me? Here's my hands or here's my legs, grab them, please. And you do that, and then when you get caught, it's like a feeling of relief. You know, okay, I'm caught. Now you're following up. Let's do the follow-up as you swing back up from the catcher, and you're coming back up here. You know, you're typically maybe pressing as hard as you can so that you're fighting that gravity, so that you can turn around and grab that bar, or you know, they may throw you up if it's a leg trick. And they'll grab you and you grab that trapeze bar and turn around. Once you grab that trapeze bar and you're heading back towards the board, it's a great feeling. I mean, no doubt about it. It's just like, okay, I made it through that. So it was pretty cool. But I do think of looking back on some of the things that we did and how high up in the air we were, and there's no question that, you know, it tightens my heart a little bit to think that we were doing things that high up in the air with no net, and you know, it really goes to show the circus person, quite frankly. They work hard, they practice all the time at perfecting these skills. They're always pushing limits and the like. But yeah, every now and then when I see an aerialist or some aerial act or something like that going on, I have so much respect for it, quite frankly.
He's fixing it. Your hair looks great, by the way.
I dyed it.
Really?
No.